So, I'm here with a tutorial, finally! Before the actual video, I'd like to make a little disclaimer. This is not the correct way or the only way to draw. It's just a walkthrough of things I do when I'm drawing. So don't feel obligated to do everything I say. Thank you. Also, I'm not the best speaker, so I'm sorry if there are mistakes. Continue to the video. It will consist of two parts. In the first one, I'll introduce you to my setup and tools I use. If you don't care, feel free to skip, there will be skip marks in the description. In the second part, I'll try to explain very basic rendering principles so that you can understand what I'm doing in the later videos. So, part 1. The setup. A thing that influenced my painting style is this little button right there. What it does is making pressure control the opacity of your brush. So this is your brush when it's turned off, and this is your brush when it's turned on. Pretty cool, right? Took me forever to find out. I'm a professional. It's perfect for blending colors, because Photoshop doesn't really have those functions like Sai or Manga Studio or any other drawing program. As for the actual brushes, I use mostly Photoshop default brushes, especially this guy called Chalk 60 pixels. It has this square shape, a little bit of texture, and I really love what it does when I draw fur. See, pretty cool. Yeah. Moving on. For the more textured stuff, I use brushes from Kyle Ultimate Brush Pack, which includes a lot of really cool and realistic looking brushes, and costs about $15, I think. I'm not sponsored, by the way, I just really like them. And my faves are Pencil 2B 10 pixels. I use it mostly for sketching and coloring, and Pencil Hard, also for sketching, really love the texture. And for some details or when I'm doing line arts, I use Pastel Palooza, a really cool name, and a really cool brush. So that's pretty much all I use. Moving on to color picking. I pick my colors using this little widget right there. It's a lot simpler than the square one down there, and basically you're just thinking, okay, do I want my color to be dark or light, saturated or desaturated, what kind of hue should it be? That's all you need to think about. And to spice things up, I like to use color dynamics in the brush settings. You maybe know this one, maybe not, I'm just gonna explain it anyway. It makes every stroke of your brush a slightly different hue of the color you picked, and it's perfect for huge areas that are same color, because it makes it more interesting to look at, in my opinion. I don't know, have fun. And finally, the adjustment layers. They are the real heroes here. They improved my art, I could say overnight. Because, does your contrast suck? No worries, you can just change it in levels or curves or exposure. Do your colors look boring? Selective color and vibrance are here to fix it. I'll actually talk about them in a later video because there's a lot more to it, and I highly encourage you to at least click through them. So that's about all when it comes to my setup, and now part 2, the rendering. So what you see here is a sphere with a bit of fur coming out of it. Usually when I'm painting characters, I have these two types of surfaces. A smooth one that's skin or short fur, maybe even clothes, and hair or fur. So I'll try to demonstrate the different rendering processes on these two surfaces. So here I have a layer with the sketch, and underneath it is a layer with basic coloring and shading. And rendering usually takes place in another layer that is above the sketch and the coloring. Before the actual rendering, I'll show you yet another simplification. For the smooth surfaces, you will be doing mostly blending. That means you have a color 1, color 2, and you're trying to make a gradient out of them by picking their colors and making middle shades, then picking the middle shades, and so on until it looks smooth. You'll be using the pressure for opacity for this. When it comes to fur or any shapes with sharp edges, it is more about flat colors. Imagine you have to draw a cat. So you have a sketch with what is approximately a cat, and during rendering you start to sharpen the edges to get the shape you want. It's kind of like making paper cutouts, but with paint. Often, fur on my sketch looks like the blended surface on the left. So to draw the individual hair strands, I pick the color and start to layer triangular shapes representing the fur on top of each other. Always picking the color where I want to put the hair and sharpen them if necessary. Now that you know what is going on, let's apply it to the sphere thing. It will be slightly sped up so that I don't bore you to death, but if you want to see it in real time, there will be a video link in the description. So, I'll start with smooth parts of the sphere, blending the highlights and shadows together. It is also good to zoom out sometimes and see if it looks good, because you may not see some mistakes when you're completely zoomed in. When I'm happy with what I've got, I'll move on to the furry part, which is all about the shapes. Just drawing a lot of triangles, fixing them up. Sometimes I even turn off the pressure for this part because it's easier on my hand and you don't really need pressure for drawing flat shapes. With the same technique, I'll also render the edges of the sphere. Sometimes I like to leave a bit of line here and there, and I thought it would be nice to keep it where the smooth meets the fur. And as a finishing touch, I like to add a couple of empty hair strands and a bit of cross-hatching to make it less boring. So that's pretty much it. The rendering is done! Thank you for sitting through this. Hopefully you found it helpful. If not, don't worry. More will be coming soon with actual characters this time. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll be glad to help if I can. If you like this, maybe subscribe, but no pressure. Thank you, and see you in the next video. Goodbye!